right. So those are important things. Let's see. How many clients do you take per month, and do you work with backups?
Yes, ma'am.
So how many clients do you take per month, Tiffany?
Well, I used to take like 3 to 4
Me
per
too.
month, and now I take like 1 to 2.
Same. We're in the same boat. I think
Yeah.
we hit like our changes a lot at the same. Like we started being a doula around the same
Yeah,
time.
we did.
We like this is why we work together, guys.
Yeah.
This is why we're doing this podcast
Right,
together. It works
exactly.
out.
Hi, I'm Rachel Manns, owner of the NaturalBirth site and this podcast, the NaturalBirth Talk. Here, you'll learn all about different natural aspects of birth, pregnancy, and postpartum. Remember, none of this information should take the place of a care provider and is not medical advice. Birth is not a medical emergency. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Natural Birth Talk. Today I am here with Doula Tiffany Muniz, and if you've listened to the podcast, you've heard from her before, which is super fun. I'm super glad you're back.
Thank you.
But before we get started, I'll let you introduce yourself again, just in case no one's listened to the other podcast
Yeah.
episode.
Hi, I'm Tiffany. I am a certified birth doula, a lactation counselor, and a certified placenta encapsulator from Breeze, Illinois. So yeah.
We work together a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We use each other's backups.
All the time.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So last time we talked about physiological birth.
Yes.
And guys, if you haven't listened to that episode, go back. It's one of the first 5 episodes, but it is such a good one.
It's my fave.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Today, we are going to talk about interview questions when you're interviewing a doula.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes.
So doulas, obviously we're a big fan of doulas.
Of course.
You should definitely hire a doula.
Absolutely.
Especially if you want a natural birth. But even if you don't.
Even if you don't.
Even
Yeah.
if you don't, doulas just are really helpful for navigating hospital situations
Yep.
and nurses and just helping you to know your rights and everything
The
like
whole
that, right?
system. Yeah. Yeah.
The whole system, yeah.
Yeah.
So you were really smart and you decided you wanted to hire a doula. And we have a bunch of questions we're going to go over today.
Yeah.
So Tiffany, why don't you start with the pre-interview questions?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to ask pre-interview questions just to make sure that no one is wasting each other's time.
Yeah.
So I have 2 of those. The first one would be, do you have availability for my estimated due date? Just get that out of the way right off the bat. And then also pricing. You obviously don't want to interview a doula that charges, double what your price range is. So that's also really important.
Right. Well, and another thing about pricing too is that sometimes you can find doulas who are newer doulas and they charge on the lower end.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can even find doulas who will do it pro bono if you don't have a budget.
For sure.
So even if you don't have a doula budget, if you maybe check out like doulamatch.com and see if you can find some local doulas and ask around and see if they know anybody.
Or local moms groups.
Yes, local moms groups can help a lot too.
Yeah.
Even if you may find a doula who's on the lower end, which may be really great, but, it is important to keep in mind that usually if they're charging less, it's because they're newer, right?
Correct.
Or they have less trainings.
Yep.
Less, additional trainings.
Additional training. Yep. Less experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then sometimes the doulas that charge on the higher end, maybe they include more than some of the other doulas do. They may include extra prenatal visits, extra postpartum help. For me, I include an herbal perinatal package, and I include my online at your own pace natural birth education course, which is my nice little plug, guys. If you want an online at your own pace natural birth education course, you should definitely check out the description below for the natural birth site course. But anyway, those are just like extra things that I include that a lot of people don't include.
Right.
So you don't just want to look at the price itself.
Correct.
Right? You want to look at what all's included.
Everything that is included. Correct.
And then when you ask about estimated due date, it's really important to remember that it's just an estimate, right?
Right. Exactly.
Right. Hey, Tiffany, how many births have you had that actually birthed on their due date?
1.
1. Yeah. Out of how many?
Like 85.
Yeah. So I'm like around the same number in 80 something. And I've actually weirdly had like 6.
Really?
Isn't that so weird?
I mean, I had my son on his due date too.
Did you really?
I did.
And none of those were inductions.
No.
Yeah.
No, none of them.
Yeah,
Nope.
which is crazy. Which 6, that's still less than 10%. And we're over here like super surprised about this number.
I know, right?
80 something.
Yeah.
So those are just really important things to remember when you ask those pre-interview questions.
Yes.
And we have a whole list of other questions too. Before we get to those though, another thing you can do is sometimes doulas will have bios or websites where you can learn a little bit more and dig before you decide to set up an interview.
Yep. I know me personally, I have my social media page, and that has tons of information, you know, for people to learn about me and how I practice and kind of what my philosophy is.
Yeah. And so, and we'll get to philosophy in a little bit because doulas, every doula has a different philosophy on things.
Right. So the first one that I think is very important is, why did you decide on becoming a doula? And what is your favorite thing about being a doula?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's helpful because some people, you know, it just gives you some insight into who you're talking to.
Right. And what their passion behind it is, or if there is a passion, or if they're just doing it because they need money or they need a job. Or,
right.
You know, yeah.
Right. And it also will give you some insight into the next question.
Yes, which is, what is your philosophy around birth? It doesn't really make sense, at least for me personally, you know, if I have a client who is wanting to have a scheduled C-section, for them to hire me because my passion is really physiologic, unmedicated, raw birth.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that if our clients do end up having a C-section,
Sure.
that we're going to be disappointed or upset or anything like that. Because I'm with Tiffany. We both tend to be more naturally minded.
Yes.
We both tend to love that physiological birth, those raw emotions that come with it. And honestly, you know, the cesarean births, especially if it's planned, they're easier to support in a lot of ways, especially physically easier.
Yes.
But for some reason, we like to torture ourselves and go the natural birth.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But that's just where our passion lies. And that's just where we fit with those clients. And so...
And there are doulas who their passion is are C-sections.
Yeah, and birth photographers too, even. Not
exactly.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, right, exactly. There are, you know, definitely people out there who that's what they prefer.
Yeah. And so, you know, if that's you, you just want to find that person. Probably since you're listening to the Natural Birth Talk, you may be more on the natural, you know, physiological birth-minded type end of the spectrum.
Yep.
You want to know the person's philosophy. You want to know why they got started because you want to know if they're going to fit with you.
For sure.
And that's huge. There's a doula for everyone out there, and you just have to find the right one. You don't want to just hire the first one that you find that fits in your price range.
Exactly. Yeah. I always tell people, like, definitely interview more than one doula, and you want to pick the one that you're the most comfortable with. And the reason behind that is, you know, we don't want any tension in the birth space, because tension makes everything more uncomfortable and more painful. So really having someone that you love and that you are comfortable with is so, so important.
Absolutely. Well, and that tension can stall labor progress.
Absolutely.
It can absolutely even stop it to a point. Other things, though, that you might look for within philosophy, you know, there are a lot of doulas out there that while they like physiological birth, they're still more medically minded.
Absolutely.
As far as, like, you know, newborn medications or postpartum medications or things like that, or they may prefer hospital births. Yeah. Whereas, like, Tiffany and I, we like herbs.
Yep. We do mostly out-of-hospital births.
Yes, we do mostly out-of-hospital births. We like homeopathy. Yep. We like spinning babies.
All the crunchy things.
All the crunchy things that are going to help your body just kind of naturally take care of things.
Yeah.
And again, that's not to say that those other doulas are wrong.
No.
It's just a different philosophy.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's why we have to ask that question.
Exactly.
Yep. So, okay, what's next?
So walk me through what your services include and what does your support look like during labor?
Yes, that's huge because I kind of touched on that.
Yeah.
Where we may all include something different.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you don't want to just look at the price. You want to look at what's included. They may include herbal supplements.
Yep.
They may include a childbirth education class.
Yep.
I think at least in our area, the St. Louis, Missouri type area, we mostly see doulas offer 2 prenatals.
Yep.
Full labor and birth support, and 1 postpartum visit.
Yep. That's
like the standard.
For sure. But there are still some doulas around who will offer like a 12-hour cap on their labor. You know? So that's something to kind of look out for too.
And there are some that work in a group also.
Absolutely. Yep.
So they may, you know, your main doula may be there for 12 hours or 18 hours, and then they switch out with their backup doula, and every 12 hours or 18 hours there's a switch. And for some people, that is really nice because, you know, you always have that fresh set of eyes.
Exactly.
And then for other people, they're like, no.
I want the same person the whole time.
Yes, I have to have my doula.
Yeah.
And I think Tiffany and I are more on that spectrum of like, we will stick with you as long as we can.
As long as we can.
As, you know, we do sometimes get to the point where we're like useless.
Yeah.
And at that point, we want our client to have help. Right.
Yeah. And then we call each other.
And we call the other person.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that is really important to know if there's a time limit, to know how many prenatal and postpartum visits are included. Yep. Are there extra things like herbs or childbirth education classes? You know, when do you join me in labor?
Yeah.
Like for me, I don't have a set timeline. I just talk to my clients and I keep in contact with them and I come when I feel like they need me.
Yep. Me too.
And some other people, you know, especially if you're having more of a hospital birth, especially with an epidural or something, you may be getting regular cervical exams. Yep. And so some doulas will say, well, don't call me till you're 4 centimeters or don't call me till you're 6 centimeters. Yep. And that works for some people too. It's just, again, there's a doula for everyone. You just got to find the right one.
Right, exactly.
All right, what's next?
Okay, so the next one is, what resources will you offer me?
That's a really good one. Yep. That kind of goes in with what's included in the package a little bit.
Kind of, yes.
What are some examples?
So for me personally, what I offer my clients is I have a Google Drive, and it has tons of folders and information and different resources about all kinds of things: breastfeeding, postpartum support, prenatal support, some information about spinning babies, and nutritional support, and chiropractic care, and the list goes on.
All the things, herbs and homeopathy,
yes,
baby.
Yeah.
And for me, I don't have a Google Drive, but I have my online class that I've already plugged.
Yeah.
And so that's a resource that I include. For me, I'm also a Spinning Babies parent educator.
Yeah.
So I get to include that specific education for all of my clients.
Yeah.
For other people, I don't know, I'm sure there's herbalists or homeopaths that are doulas out there. So those are just little resources that may be available.
Yeah.
You're going to get to hear my cute little 2-year-old in the background on this one, I think, guys. Okay, so just a list of resources. I'm sure we're missing something on that, but...
I don't know. I think that was good. The next one is, what things are important to you for your clients to do?
That's really good.
Yes.
Because I know you have expectations for your clients.
I definitely have expectations for my clients, just like they have expectations for me. So some of the things that I really encourage my clients to do are take an out-of-hospital childbirth education class, see a chiropractor, a Webster certified chiropractor regularly throughout their pregnancy. Yeah, things like that.
I think another thing would be like, you know, some doulas may have nutrition suggestions or expectations.
Yeah.
Or exercise. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of things. I'm kind of stumbling. Yeah, but there's a lot of things. So you want to know if you're expected to do anything or not.
Correct.
Even something as simple as communication.
Yes.
Like, what are the communication expectations? Does your doula want to know every little change?
Yep.
Or does your doula just want to know when you go into labor?
Yeah. Do they want an update after every appointment with your provider?
Yeah. How are you? Do you like to send updates?
Yeah, exactly.
Or not?
Yeah, right.
So I love updates.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
I love getting all the updates.
Yeah, me too.
I love it when my clients update me. And sometimes I'll get a client who doesn't quite love all the updates.
Yeah.
And it's fine and it works out, but I'll get like a little surprise every once in a while. Like, oh, I didn't know that changed. Okay, like gotta put it in my notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right. So those are important things. Let's see. How many clients do you take per month, and do you work with backups?
Yes, ma'am.
So how many clients do you take per month, Tiffany?
Well, I used to take like 3 to 4
Me
per
too.
month, and now I take like 1 to 2.
Same. We're in the same boat. I think we hit like our changes a lot of the same. Like we started being a doula around the same time.
Yeah, we did.
We like this is why we work together, guys. This is why we're doing this podcast together. It works out.
Yeah.
And then we have another really good friend in the area who takes 4 to 5 clients a month every month.
And she knows this.
Yes.
She knows she's crazy.
She
She just had like 7 births in 7 days.
Yeah, it was crazy. Guys, I actually have an episode with her too. It's Stephanie Thomas, and it's 6 tips for body balancing.
She's amazing.
She really is. She's absolutely amazing. But she's crazy.
She is crazy.
So she also doesn't have little kids like you and I have.
Right,
her
exactly.
kids are older.
I think that's the biggest difference, yeah.
And so because she takes more clients in a month, though, she's more likely to have to call a backup.
Yeah, and she definitely has more people that she leans on for support. Obviously.
Yeah. We're 2 of them.
She needs that. Yeah,
We're 2 of them.
Yeah.
But she obviously has a lot more because she takes more clients.
Right.
But it all works out for her clients, too, because she works with the backups.
Right, exactly.
So that's just another thing you want to ask.
So her clients always have a doula no matter what. So even if she's at a birth or she's been at a birth for the past 2 days, her clients always have somebody for support.
Yeah, and so you want to make sure, you know, that your doula is going to do the same.
Exactly.
I was watching New Girl the other day.
Yeah.
And if you guys have seen New Girl, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, bear with me through the story. But Winston and guys, if you haven't seen the end, this might be a spoiler, and I'm sorry. But Winston and Allie are having a baby, and Allie's in labor, and Winston's like, okay, I'm going to call a doula. And Allie just gets in this like totally distressed voice, says, the doula's at Lollapalooza. And my first reaction is like, why doesn't that doula have a backup?
Right, exactly.
Call the backup.
Yeah.
So it's really important that
really
your
funny.
doula has backups.
I've never seen that show.
You haven't?
I've never seen that show.
We love that show. I've watched through it like 4 times.
I'm going to have to watch it.
It's pretty hilarious. It ends really well, too.
It's like your emotional
I'm an endings
support
person, so...
TV show?
Yes, it is. And I'm an endings person. So, like, if this whole show can be amazing, but if it ends terribly, I'm not going to like it.
Yeah.
This one ends really well.
That's funny.
So, anyway, side note.
I'm going to have to watch that.
Point being, you really, there are very few doulas who don't work with a backup.
Right, yeah.
And usually they do. Another actually add-on to that is, how do they choose their backup? Is it one specific person?
Right.
Or, like, for me, I try to choose based on my client's desires, which... At this point in my practice, they're almost all
the same.
They almost all kind of align together, so it's always the same few doulas.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, I get someone who has, like, a specific preference that I know a certain doula would fit really well.
Absolutely.
And so that's how I choose my backups. But not everybody does that.
Or me, like, sometimes I have clients who, like, I just know their personality is going to work so well with, XYZ doula. So,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Where are we on this list here?
So at what point will you join me during my labor, and how long will you stay?
So we touched on that a little bit and what's included.
Yeah.
But it's really important. Early on in my doula career, I actually had a 12-hour limit in my contract.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is just the contract that came with in my doula training.
With your training, right.
And I tried to, like, make it clear to people, like, okay, I don't actually follow that 12-hour mark. I just reserve the right to call somebody after 12 hours. That doesn't necessarily mean I will.
Right.
But it definitely scared off two potential clients.
Really?
Just having it in the contract. Yeah. Because I ended up asking, like, hey, why'd you pick someone else?
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, so I could learn for myself what I needed to do differently. Yeah. And it was that 12-hour limit.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I don't have that in my contract anymore.
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah.
I just have a blanket statement about I will call a backup if I'm useless to you, basically.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. And how long you will stay, I think that's a really great question for postpartum, too.
Yes.
How long will you stay after the baby is born? And what does your support look like during that time?
That's a really good question,
because it does change a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, really depending on your birthing location. But, yeah, it does change.
Yeah, so, like, for a home birth, I tend to stick around longer postpartum.
For sure, because they're so laid back.
Right. Yeah. Well, and there's just more for us to do, too.
Sure.
Because there's not nurses doing everything or whatever.
Right.
Whereas in the hospital, after, like, an uncomplicated natural vaginal birth, sometimes I leave after an hour because...
If everything's good.
If everything's good, breastfeeding's established, like, I'm just in the way at that point.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Whereas with a cesarean birth, I tend to stick around a little bit longer.
Right.
But everybody has a different limit. Some people are like, okay, baby's here, you got 30 minutes and I'm out.
Right. Yeah.
So, okay.
Do you have referrals or testimonials?
Which is really good, too. So, obviously, if you're hiring a new doula, they probably won't have a whole lot of testimonials. Right. And they may not even have a lot of referrals yet because they're just not as familiar with your local birth community. We are really spoiled in St. Louis.
We are very spoiled.
We have such a good birth community around here.
We do.
It's
even getting better in Illinois.
Yes.
Which is specifically where we live.
Yeah, we're on the Illinois side of St. Louis, but we're still, like, technically a suburb or the greater St. Louis area.
Right.
And it's always growing and doing better, like, almost always.
Yes.
When I went to the Spinning Babies parent educator training last year.
Yeah.
I was just floored to hear it was in Minneapolis, yep. Yeah. I was floored to hear that so many people were saying, like, I'm the only doula in my area, or I'm the only midwife in my area, or none of my local hospitals support VBAC, or I was like, oh my gosh, it was like glass shattering for me because we're so spoiled around here.
We are.
Anyway, so in our area, if you're interviewing a doula, you better have some good referrals.
Yeah, for sure.
But you may be in an area where there's not much of anything.
Right. I mean, specifically where I live, it's a pretty rural community.
Yeah, because you live a little further out than I do.
I do. And I'm really the only doula within, like, 3 counties.
Which is how you get all the home births.
Yeah, it is. It definitely
I would drive over there. I'm just saying.
And there's only really one hospital over my way.
Anyway, so it is important, especially if you're going to want referrals and such, to find out what your doula knows. And to know what your doula doesn't know also.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end. We only got a couple more.
We have 2 more, I think.
Hey, listener, do you want a comprehensive yet concise and inexpensive online at your own pace natural birth education course to help you prepare for natural birth, pregnancy, and postpartum? Then check out the description below for that and our helpful products guide. Now back to the show.
Okay. Do you have any additional trainings?
I think this one's super important.
It is important.
Spinning babies is a huge one. We've mentioned it several times, of course.
We are both big supporters of spinning babies.
Absolutely. I actually just had a podcast episode with Gail Tully, who is the creator of Spinning Babies. That took a long time to pin down,
I'm honestly a little jealous.
Yeah.
So awesome.
It was really awesome talking to her.
Yeah.
And Spinning Babies is just, anyway, I'll just do a little plug. It's to bring comfort in pregnancy and ease in labor, and it's movements and exercises you can do during pregnancy and during labor that can help your birth go more smoothly.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't guarantee you're going to have a quick, fast,
of course,
straightforward labor.
Yeah.
But it may mean the difference between having a vaginal birth and a C-section.
Absolutely.
It absolutely
I've
can
seen
make
it
a
with
difference.
my own eyes.
Same here.
Yep.
Same here. So many of those techniques have been so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And so anytime I talk to anybody, if I can't take them on, I'm pretty much only referring to doulas who have Spinning Babies training.
Yeah.
And, you know, if it's someone who interviewed me but didn't hire me, or even at the end of an interview, I'll even say, like, hey, if you interview other people, even if you don't hire me, like, look for someone with Spinning Babies training.
Yeah.
Other ones are like essential oils training that are specific to birth.
Yeah.
That one, a lot of people have essential oil training, but maybe not specific to birth.
Yeah.
What are some other trainings?
Like breastfeeding training. Do
Absolutely.
you have any extra education for that?
Which you do. You have more on that than I do.
I do. Any extra training on herbs or homeopathy?
Yeah.
I just did a little quick course. It was like 3 hours long on homeopathy for birth. And that was really educational for me. Because
that's awesome.
Obviously, I only know this stuff for like families and wellness. So that was really great.
That's awesome. I just recorded a podcast episode about homeopathy for the perinatal period too.
Yeah.
So you guys can check that one out too.
Yeah.
And I have one on herbs. Guys, I have one on all of these things. Just go back through the list of the podcast episodes and definitely check out the description for links and stuff. Yep. You'll find something.
Or trainings on nutrition. There are doulas who have like a lot of education on nutrition. So things like that.
And breech vaginal birth.
Breech vaginal birth.
So a lot of doulas don't have vaginal breech birth training because that's outside of our scope of practice.
Correct.
But some of us have experience, or like Breech Without Borders allows doulas to take their training. Yeah. So I got to take that, and it was super exciting. And then Tiffany has had some experience with vaginal breech birth a couple times this year.
Yeah, I
home
had
birth.
2 home birth clients who had, one was a surprise breech or vaginal breech birth, and then the other one we knew that baby was breech, and she still decided to have the home birth. And they were both beautiful and amazing, and so emotional and
awesome,
all the great things.
And so that's just like another training that can be really helpful that some doulas may have, and VBAC too.
VBAC for sure.
So we both have a lot of like VBAC education and things like that. Sometimes it's not official training.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like casual experience or casual education that you come across, a book you've read, things like that.
Yep.
So you guys really should go check the list of podcast episodes because I have one on almost everything we said.
Yeah.
I also have one on like incorporating spirituality into birth, which some doulas are better at than others. And there's like education and training. So there's just like such a wide array. Bereavement training.
Yes.
Things like that too. C-section experience.
Yeah.
That was a big list.
That was a big list. But it's important to ask these questions because that's how you're going to find the doula that is right for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we have one more last question for our interview questions list.
Yes. How will you make sure to include my husband or partner?
I think this is a big one too.
It is.
Because how many times have we gotten an interview
every single time,
right? The moms are like, well, my husband's unsure. Like, he doesn't want to be replaced.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Or they don't know what to do and they need help figuring out how to be a support person during the birth.
Right, because it's really overwhelming.
It is.
For a lot of husbands and partners because they just see mom in a lot of pain and they don't know what to do.
Right.
And we're able to step in and kind of guide them and help them, give them ideas.
Encourage them.
Yep. And as much as they want to be involved.
For sure. And that's something I tell all of my potential clients as well. Like, I want you to be as involved as you want to be.
Exactly.
I'm not going to force you to do anything.
Right.
But if you want to be the main support person, then I'm just along for the ride. I'm going to help you and encourage you and show you things that you can do to help your partner.
Giving tips and tricks. A lot of times, like, I have a lot of dads who, like, don't necessarily want to do, like, the super hands-on stuff, but, like, come transition, they're saying all the really sweet phrases, or they're, like, the water person.
Oh,
so they're, like, giving
or the
water.
the washcloth person.
Or the washcloth person, yes.
Constantly bringing out the ice.
And it's just, like, something they can do to feel like they're helping. Yeah. But then I have other dads who are like, no, I'll do all the hip squeezes. Yeah. And I'm like, that's great because my arms are tired.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
And then I've had some dads that sleep on the couch.
Yep, definitely had those too. Yep.
And I struggle with those a little bit. Although as long as mom's fine with it,
right?
I ultimately don't care.
Yeah, yeah. Great.
But I do tease those usually.
Oh,
I
sure.
tend to tease them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway,
yeah,
that was a great list.
This has been great.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys were taking notes.
Yeah,
I should have probably prompted you ahead of time.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so guys, if you have any other questions or other thoughts on something we could add to the list, definitely send me a message. Let me know. Thanks for being here, Tiffany.
Thanks for having me.
This was fun. It's always a pleasure when you join us.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
If you guys have any questions, like I said, reach out, contact at thenaturalbirthsite.com. Definitely check the description below there'll probably be a whole list of links. Because we talked about a lot of stuff in this episode. So I'll have a lot of links down below.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys in the next episode.
Yeah, bye
Thanks
guys.
for listening.
Hi, Rachel Manns again. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to and rate this podcast and head over to thenaturalbirthsite.com to check out our online natural birth education course, birth story blog, YouTube channel, and more.